Your friend flakes on plans. Your roommate leaves the room messy. You are cut off by someone in the traffic. How do you really feel? You feel it rising in your chest, jaws clenching. You feel like shouting and saying all the nasty things that you're thinking about to the other person. This is real, isn't it? It is so spontaneous, and isn't this anger? But what if I tell you that it's all a lie? What if I tell you that you choose to be angry only because it serves a purpose for you? In other words, in order to fulfill the goal of shouting, create the emotion of an anger. Well, this isn't a self-help cliche. This is radical, almost uncomfortable truth that comes out of this book, The Courage to be Disliked. The idea that the emotion of an anger is just a tool to serve a particular purpose or goal. Once you see that, you can stop using it to manipulate you and live a life that is about true freedom. Welcome back to this another episode of Unfold Learning podcast, where I'm sharing with you interesting insights and learnings which I wish to pay it forward from the book, The Courage to be Disliked. I am Kaustav, your host, and if you are a tad interested to make personal growth, self-discovery, and growth mindset tangible by breaking stereotypes, well, this is the space for you. Stay tuned till the end as we unfold the myth of anger being a reaction of an action that we think we cannot control. In my previous two videos, I talked about how this book, The Courage to be Disliked, talks about the philosophy of teleology, which is essentially actions are pulled by the goals or the purpose that we set instead of our past. For example, typically one would say that they cannot be in a relationship because they haven't seen their parents to work. And therefore, implicitly, they set this goal for themselves that they cannot fail. And hence, they never choose to be in a relationship with anybody else. But when it comes to anger, one would argue that it is an equal and opposite reaction of an action where someone gets offended. But that's where the learning from this book is very revealing. In many ways, for me, what stood out was the stereotype that has been set in my head basis the conditioning that we are surrounded with. It actually helped me to change the way I look at the world around, and I look at my emotion, and essentially that emotion of an anger, in a very different way. So let me share with you a story that comes out of this book where the philosopher narrates. Now the story goes like this. He tells the story about a mother and a child. And in one situation, the mother is seen screaming at her child, fury in her eyes, because the child won't listen to her to clean the room. Philosopher asks, is it possible that the mother's anger is the cause for screaming? And what would be the answer? We all would say, absolutely yes, of course. That's where philosopher says, no, it's not that. The mother is instead using her anger as a tool to get the child to clean the room. We believe, or rather we have been taught, that anger is an uncontrollable emotion. It's a reaction of an action. It's a spontaneous emotion. Let's put it that way. This thought or an outlook actually makes us a victim. We blame our actions to our feelings. I'm sorry, I yelled because I was mad. Remember, this is the mindset that keeps us powerless. The truth is that anger is a conscious choice, a tool we pull out of our emotional toolbox when it's convenient. It's not a cause, it's a means to an end. In the story of the mother and the child that I shared right now, the mother's goal is to make her child clean the room. The easiest and the quickest way that she chose to make it happen was to intimidate her child to obedience by the use of anger and shouting. And here's the kicker. The moment the child agrees to clean the room, the mother's anger vanishes. Why? because the tool has served its purpose. Typically, when we find ourselves in a situation of anger, the procedure of explaining things in normal words and the tone feels too much of a task. And we only focus on making the other person, and remember this, we only focus in making the other person submit themselves to what we want them to do. And the tool used is anger. Think about it. You have a road rage, you have an argument. What's happening? Only the volume and the choices of words are becoming bizarre, because the goal is to make the person feel intimidated, overwhelmed, and listen to you because you think that you are right. So what you're doing is you're actually creating that emotion of anger that will help you to make the person feel intimidated. And that's where the idea from this book of Courage to be Disliked comes in, that kind of throws you off. It did to me, where it says that we fabricate our anger to just get the things that we wanted to be done. And in case you're wondering, why did I really wanted to bring this topic out? Because anger is one such aspect of our beings which will always take us downhill, no matter what. And I'd like to think that I don't have to explain you why it is really important to understand that emotion of anger and how it impacts not only ourselves but people around us in different spheres of the life that we are in, be it work, be it personal, whatever it is. Great. I hope thus far you have been able to make connections to the idea that I'm trying to present, is where that anger as an emotion is not really that spontaneous, is not really uncontrollable. It is something that we do or leverage the means to an end, where we implicitly set a particular goal which we are probably not aware of, and to meet that goal we continue to kind of fuel in that emotion of anger so that it makes us shout, it makes us say those nasty things, because we feel that it is the easiest way to get the thing done of what we are wanting. So you must be wondering, what is the alternative to this when we find ourselves in that situation where we are kind of fueling up with that burning urge to kind of react, snap, and say those nasty things and think that it's just our anger that is making us do it? Well, like I said before, this is not a self-help cliche thing. So let me leave you with some concrete, tangible actions, which has personally helped me to realize this and bring it into practice, where I would say that I'm still a work in progress, but I'm able to control that emotion of anger at several situations. Number one, reiterate to yourself again and again that you're not a victim of your anger. You have to do it repeatedly, because the more you say it to yourselves, it'll get affirmed in your head and it'll internalize in your actions. Number two, you need to bring your focus to what your goal is. You're having an argument. Is the goal to win that argument, or is the goal to achieve the purpose of why that argument is happening at the first place? Number three, when you're clear with the focus, the objective, and when you find yourself in a situation of heat, argument, anger, that's when you need to realize, to ask yourself, what is really required here? Is there an alternative way to shouting, to saying nasty things? Could this be done in a peaceful, calm, conversational way rather than just snapping someone? So essentially, in summary, 4 aspects become your North Star. Number one, can you be calm in those situations? Can you focus more on conversation versus one side of throwing information and words? Can you compromise? Because an understanding will only reach when you take, or when you get to a halfway or a midway with the other person. And the last and the most important, do you really value the idea of mutual respect? And that is something that is extremely important, because trust me, you would not treat someone in a way which you would not appreciate if you were treated that way. And that is extremely, extremely important. Well, we keep using these jargons of freedom, independence, etc., etc. By the way, there are a lot of nuances to it. But when it comes to freedom, it's actually about those practices, those small actions will help us to be more aware of ourselves and be more in the present. That's where the real idea of freedom as an experience comes to surface. And in a simple way, how that happens, it doesn't happen by choosing to control your emotions, but it only happens when you choose your goals in your present. And once you do that, you realize that a life without manufacturing anger is a life of true serenity and power. You become the master of your own emotional world. So, next time, remember, when you are welling up in anger, I would hope that you will go back to those three things of reiterating yourself that you're not a victim of your anger, telling yourself what is your focus, what is your objective, and the third, thinking about calm, conversation, compromise, and self-respect. Do drop in your comment to let me know what do you think about this topic. Did you ever consider the perspective of anger as an emotion being controllable? It is essentially that we typically fabricate to achieve a particular purpose that we intend to. Let me know what you think. Do subscribe Unfold Learning podcast with me, Kaustav. It is one encouraging, but it also helps this content, which I am assuming you would find value, to reach as many people as possible. Meanwhile, I hope you will take good care of yourself. You will value in those small actions to be a better human being for yourself and people around. And hey, I know that you are enough. Thank you very much for being there. I will see you soon next week. Take care.